All right. Hello and welcome to the Devstream 136 breakdown. So, as you guys can probably already tell, this video is going to be a little bit scrappier. I am still away for the week visiting my girlfriend, but I really wanted to talk about the Devstream, and I have everything I need to technically do a video, just maybe not as snazzy as usual, and hope the audio quality is still great for you guys. Anyway, though, let's jump into talking about the dev stream because there was a good bit to cover here. First and foremost, they talked very minorly about some coming additions to Railjack. Basically, they're going to be adding the Corpus stuff and just integrating that, which gives me at least a little bit of hope that they are going to be hopefully fixing some of the stuff with Railjack and making it so that the combat is more enjoyable in the coming days as they're adding this new content. But we'll see where it goes. Maybe just better mission types will help it in a considerable way. Hard to tell right now. However, a thing that is very easy to tell is the new Leverian stuff. So, Leverians are one of the things that I was initially skeptical of, but ended up really enjoying. And this is Leverians slash Prex. And the Prex are what you're seeing on screen right now, which are these tarot cards for each of the Warframes. Each Warframe that has a Leverian has a Prex card because the Prex card is directly associated with it. For those that don't know what Leverians are basically dioramas of a bunch of models and concept stuff associated with the backstory of a given Warframe. So Goss and Grendel both have one of these, so you can go in game right now and go to the Codex and then go to Goss or Grendel, and there will be a big Leverian button where you can go and check that stuff out. And then, once you have mastered the Warframe associated with the Leverian, there is a hidden Prex card in each of those Leverians that you can get as a cosmetic for your ship. So it's kind of a cool way for them to dump lore and then also give you a cool cosmetic reward for your ship. And that has been super enjoyable. Ivara is getting hers. That seemed like that was going to be pretty soon. And then Ember and Vauban are getting them. And hopefully we can expect that like pretty much all of the Warframes are going to get this because they are real rad, basically. So I'm excited for that. I think the Leverians turned out to be a much better system than maybe anyone could have predicted. So that is exciting that we're getting more lore stuff from there and more cards. Beyond that, they talked a bit about liches. So liches seems like they're going to do some kind of more major changes, which is really good news because liches kind of need them. So the first and foremost thing, which I think is very important, is they're going to just remove the forced failure from liches. So right now, if you guess on a lich and you don't guess exactly correctly, you will be killed by the lich. And this has resulted in players having aversion to doing that, even though it is always the correct decision. I haven't done a video specifically about this, although I meant to. When you're hunting liches, you want them to kill you. You want to just guess on them so they can kill you and give you a bunch of progress towards your murmur so that you can kill them. That is kind of a weird feedback loop, and it's not very enjoyable for a lot of players to just like be killed over and over for obvious reasons. So they are removing that, and it's going to be replaced with something that wasn't very specific. And they also talked a bit about kind of softening the RNG on hunting the liches. And what that basically means, and what it really boiled down to, is they want you to be able to get the weapons that you're actually looking for. They didn't give a lot of details on getting a weapon with a high percentage per se, but the kind of idea that they put forward is that you would trade in a lich weapon and you would either get weapon bait for a different weapon or get like tokens towards getting a different weapon, or just the ability to kind of trade in something you didn't want for something that you do want, or make it a very straight line getting to the thing that you do actually want. So that's good. It's going to be generally very helpful, I think, for people. This is basically going to be an in-universe system for just trading, essentially. I think the difficulty that comes in is that a lot of the Kuva weapons are kind of completely useless. So if more of them were better, I think there would be more of a trading economy around them, where you would essentially have this exact system where you convert a lich and it has, say, the Kuva comb, and then you want the Kuva Quartak, and someone has a Kuva Quartak and they want a Kuva comb. So you two just trade liches and then kill the liches and get your weapons. That would be kind of an ideal scenario, but there's not enough desire for certain weapons that you would just get duds all the time. So making this just trading in your duds for something that you actually want seems like a good solution. Also, there was a weird tangent portion, I feel like, of the Lich talk where they talked like about thralls in an extremely vague way of like just like reducing the amount of thralls maybe that you need to capture, or making the thralls more interesting, or adding an additional mechanic somewhere, or just doing something with that. It was a very vague talk about improvements to how thralls are dealt with, but hopefully they can do that as well. That would be good if the thralls were more engaging, or if there were simply fewer of them, I suppose. So there's that. And then, much more importantly, we have a new concept for a new Warframe, and this is Odalisk. Odalisk is a tech-based Warframe that appears to have gotten all of the things that people were asking for on a Vauban rework. She has like crazy grenade throwing action, and she has a turret, and she also has literally Tracer's ult from Overwatch. She can just rewind time back to a position and get all of her energy and ammo and all that business back. And that seems to be the direction that she's going with. She was referred to as Vauban's niece, and you know what? Whoever the other side of this tree is must be pretty fucking good, because they're going to need to be to offset the even current state of Vauban, even post rework. So yeah, hopefully she's good. Her design looks very cool. She looks kind of like tech bandity, if you had to ask me. Design seems cool. Hopefully that frame comes together. I didn't list out all the abilities in my notes, and that's mostly because they talked about the abilities in kind of a vague way, and I, in particular, believe that the ult that they talked about, which is the ability to like place a thing and then rewind time back to that point for only yourself, I feel like that's not going to work, because I feel like there's enough situations in Warframe where that would allow you to break stuff in a way that you can't with a lot of other Warframes, kind of for the same reason that Ivara's Navigator didn't get the ability to teleport to the arrow. It seems like a lot of the things that you could break would be very similar. So we might not end up with that power, I think, given that, I don't know. In my view, I think it will cause issues and will be something else in the end. Seems like it's kind of still early days for Odalisk, but that is going to be the next Warframe. Also, very minorly, they talked about an upcoming Fortuna expansion, and we only really know one detail, which is that we're going to get a new MOA type. Hopefully, this MOA is not made of fucking paper mache and explodes on contact with the enemy's eyeballs seeing them. So that would hopefully be nice. It is apparently a melee MOA, which means it's going to be directly in the line of fire to get exploded, but we'll see how it goes. Also, in worrying news, we have the Modular Ark Wing stuff. So the plan, as it were, they talked about this a bit previously, is they're going to remove all of the current Arc Wings and make all of them pieces that are modular, and they're going to be reworking a bunch of the abilities. So the only thing that I have to go with this is that you should be prepared for absolutely heavy-handed extreme nerfs. Like, I know that seems like kind of a bummer, but like that's really what that says to me. Given where Railjack is currently, it seems that DE is unhappy with like the Amish's ability to live in Railjack at all and for any amount of time. So all of the Arcwings may need to just be paper mache explode in Railjack, and they're not happy with them surviving or being good in any capacity, maybe. Just the way I'm seeing Arkwing at current, with the current way Railjack is balanced, but I don't expect the modular Arkwing stuff to go well. I hope it does, but it is not what I expect at current. And finally, we have some armor changes to talk about. And the armor changes and what they talked about gives me some interesting thoughts. So basically, the first thing that they put out is that you would have exponential armor gain up to a point, and then it would kind of level off. Like, it would still go up, but it would go up at a considerably slower rate. And the example they gave is that it would do like the exact curve it does now up to, say, like level 80 or so, and then it would do a much decreased non-exponential curve, still upwards, but just very much more slight, so enemies don't gain such an absurd amount of armor. And that part, I absolutely agree with. The armor scaling is out of control. It's been out of control for a long, long time, and they do need to do something about it, and I think that is a good solution, plain and simple. But then they mentioned something that doesn't have anything to do with the armor that I thought was very interesting, and I think is maybe completely odd. They talked about just a damage buff for enemies. and they want it basically to be enemies are less bullet spongy but more deadly. And I have some thoughts on that. So at the current state of Warframe as it stands now, if you're doing like any kind of high level content, and like high level is maybe a strong term for what I'm about to discuss here, but if you're doing, like, let's say the enemies are above level 90, let's say, if you're not a Warframe with abilities to tank or otherwise abilities to survive, you do die instantly. There are many, many things that will evaporate you. It's kind of the reason why Warframes without defensive abilities are simply not as good, because they don't get the opportunity to use their stuff because enemies turn on a dime and instantly headshot you and you explode at these higher levels. And this is true of more Warframes as levels go up. If you get into like the level, like let's say 150 plus enemies, the moment Avara's stealth turns off, she evaporates into a puddle of goo. Like, it's not that the enemies don't do enough damage, it's more the way they do their damage. Like, if D wants enemies to feel more lethal, they can do that, but the current way that enemies deal with us in terms like of eliminating us is flawed conceptually, because they just do the damage to us. A lot of enemies don't really have real interaction with us. The damage just happens, and if you can't take it, you die. And I think what needs to happen if they want these enemies to be more lethal in a way that can still feel fun is they need to give them real mechanics that we can react to. Whereas, like, for a great example of this, I think, is some of like the boss fights and stuff, right? If you have an attack that's going to do a ton of damage in, like, say, the Kill It Aim fight, those missiles have a targeting like zone on the ground, and it's like, well, don't stand where the missile's about to be, you'll die. Having stuff like that, if you get hit by that missile, it's your fault, right? And it being your fault that you died, I think, is an important feeling whenever you have like very lethal enemies, because if it doesn't feel like it's your fault that you died, then it just feels like shit. Like whenever you die as Avara because like you fell off a ledge or whatever, and then your invisibility turned off, so someone like 300 miles away like saw you out of the corner of their eye and then shot you one time, and then you exploded even though there was no one in the room with you or whatever, like that's a bad feeling. Like, let's say you're Loki and you need to reapply your invisibility, and your invisibility goes off. You immediately hit the button to go invisible again, but you died because that half a millisecond you were visible, you got hit with one bullet. Like, that doesn't feel great or like earned by the enemy. Like there was no tell, essentially. Like, an enemy that's looking away from you can kill you in less than a half a second, just on its whim, essentially. And I don't know. If they want to redo the difficulty of the game, there's a much larger enemy overhaul that needs to happen along with that, I think. And it would be a mistake to simply just be like, the damage numbers of enemies go up, because it's only going to make fewer Warframes viable. Like, it's only going to be like, oh, only the tankiest of the tanky tank Warframes can now actually do their job, and then otherwise you need to have some gimmick like complete invisibility forever, like Ivara usually has, and things like that, where it just won't be a good feeling to not be invincible in your own given way, because that's just the way that Warframe is and has been for literally years. So people are going to continue to push for that, and if you just push a bunch of Warframes out of that, it just makes those Warframes worse. Anyway, though, that's kind of out of the scope of the discussion for this dev stream. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on what they talked about, and just, yeah, that's kind of what's up. I will be back on Thursday, so I will see you guys then. There's going to be a bunch of videos and stuff and more streams and things. I have been streaming while I've been gone. For those of you that have been checking that out, I appreciate it. We did some Monster Hunter and also some Magic the Gathering. We did the pre-release and things, and that was great. But yeah, I will see you guys later. Sorry, this is kind of less edited than usual, but I will be back to my more regularly edited content later on. Goodbye, everybody.